Well, I started as an actor at the age of 14, purely through chance, really. I was a member of a children's drama club in Yorkshire that met on a Saturday mornings, and through them I got a day's work as an extra on a television programme. And during that day I was spotted by a casting director who asked me to go the following week to meet a director, which I did. And I landed a role in a children's television series, completely out of the blue. And I was in fact doing my O-levels at school, and they let me out of school under the proviso that I went back to do my O-levels. But of course I never did. I mean, who would? Once I was out, up and running, and suddenly I was an actor. So it was more by chance than anything else. And I worked in television for a couple of years, and then went to the National Theatre at 18. I was there for 4 years, and so that's kind of my university. That was my education at the National Theatre. And then to America, to Broadway with a couple of plays, and then I worked on and off. Sorry about that, it's a fly. In various films, and then I met Jamil Delavi, the director of Born of Fire, which at one point actually originally was called The Master Musician, in the very first incarnation that I saw. And he had a plan to make this extraordinary film, which was loosely based around a script that we had, but more importantly, it was about the adventure, I think, and that seemed to be the motivating force that galvanized everyone who set off on this journey into the unknown in Turkey for almost 2 months. We were there. I first met Jamil through the conventional channels. It was about the only thing that was conventional about the whole process, actually. Through my agent, a casting call, and I came and met him, and we chatted, and I read the script, and there was no question as to whether I was going to be involved or not, because it was too exciting not to. Clearly, this was an interesting man who had some insight, and perhaps wasn't best able to put it on paper. It's often the way that the difficult part of filmmaking, I think, is transferring ideas not onto paper but onto screen to make your ideas live and have animation and atmosphere, and it's a very difficult process, and not many achieve it to any great success. So of course I didn't know that then. This was just a man who had this idea and was offering me a real chance to go on an adventure. So I was quickly on board.
Master musician!
I think as a young actor I always avoided mainstream work, actually to my cost. I was very, very choosy about the work that I did, and largely because of a kind of misguided artistic principle that I held, that if it was commercial, it wasn't good. The two are not mutually exclusive, I realise now, but in those days I kind of had the feeling that they were. So I did move towards things that were perhaps less of a surefire thing than I might have done. Yeah, and this is Born of Fire is a classic example of that. You know, it wouldn't. There's no. Actually, what's true in filmmaking is that nobody knows anything about what will work and what won't. So it's all guesswork. It's all a stab in the dark. Everyone has to make their best efforts, and a lot of luck comes into play. But some things that have more have success written on them more than others, and some things will have interesting, maybe successful, who knows, written on them. And Born of Fire certainly had that. Locations weren't specified. No, we kind of set off on a safari, and Jamil had found locations which, of course, are very difficult to describe because a lot of them didn't have names. I mean, they were just places in the wilds of Turkey that he'd found. So we were very much. I mean, it wasn't a case of being able to say, oh yes, and next week we'll be in so and so, because we were kind of operating, being led by the master filmmaker, well, making the master musician. when we'd finished the main shoot, we actually, there was something that Jamil didn't have, a scene he wanted to shoot. So we went back for a week. And I thought I'd been on an adventure in the main shoot, but the trip, the subsequent trip was way out there. We flew to Istanbul and then got another flight to a place called Diyarbakir, which is on the Syrian border, and actually isn't an airfield. It's a military airfield, but not a civil airfield, because nobody would want to fly there, other than the military. Anyway, so a flight there, which was a couple of hours, 3 hours from Istanbul, and then there was a very rickety minibus for about 6 hours, and then a donkey up a mountain for 2 hours, and we went into a cave, which was a mystery to me, why we'd go all that way and then go into a cave. But in fact, around the other side of this mountain, they're almost like these statues on Easter Island, these great monoliths of, which do feature in the film with in the dervish sequence. So the cave wasn't the reason we went there. The reason we went there was these extraordinary icons.
Have you found him?
No. But I've heard him. Didn't you hear the music?
The music is created here. Its source is fire.
I'd met Suzanne Crowley previously to filming. She was a friend, actually, who I'd known for some years. So I was delighted when Jamil told me she'd be doing the film, because when you're heading off on a long shoot with actors, it's great to know you're going to get on. And we had quite a lot of things to do together, some of them quite intimate, so it was great to have that kind of ease between us before we even started. So, terrific girl, absolutely beautiful. I'd seen O.T. in Westbourne Grove prior to being introduced to him, or prior to knowing anything about the film. I'd seen him kind of loping down Westbourne Grove in West London, and thought, what an extraordinary looking character. So it was perfect when I actually met him, because I didn't have a name for him. I saw his name on the cast list, O.T. Are those his initials? No, that's his name. Okay, great. And then when I saw him, I thought, oh my goodness, it's the guy from Westbourne Grove. How fantastic. And look at him, I mean, what a performance. He's a phenomenal character. On locations when filming in countries like Turkey, particularly out of any metropolitan centre, local people are generally mystified by the process, particularly when they see you doing something several times. You know, if you'll be doing multiple takes on something, completely mystification to them. Why you've just done that? Why would you do it again? But they're always fascinated, of course, and in this case, quite a few of them were used as supporting artists. So that's thrilling, I think, you know, for people to be in a film. There are some scenes in the film that are a little bit risque in terms of nudity and what we're doing to each other. And in an Islamic country, obviously, there would be some problems involved in that. We always shot within the confines. It was quite often in caves, so that's fine. You can do what you like in a cave. And in the exterior stuff, it was very well handled, and I think we just shut places down a little bit, and you can always find a quiet corner to, or again, the old backsheesh comes into play. You know, 50 quid in the right direction can close doors or open them. The shoot wasn't physically demanding so much as morally demanding. I think, you know, it's kind of seven weeks, 2 months. It's a long time to be on the road with not great food and not great living conditions. So you need some sense of purpose to get you through it, and occasionally you suffer a partial collapse of the will to carry on. But that's true of any project that's lengthy and unstructured as this was. Well, Jamil's an artist, and so he makes it up as he goes along, I think. I mean, even if you can do as much preparation as you like, but when you get into a situation like that, when you're out on a limb in a foreign land in the middle of a desert and very limited resources, and a rather vague script, then you have to make it up as you go along. And that's great for a filmmaker, artist, somebody who can, then they have just the stuff of life to put together and make images with and pictures with. And he was clearly, despite the probable difficulties that he would face on a daily basis, I think he was enjoying himself.
In the solitude of its voice, his secret is hidden. As long as he does not understand its power, it can be stolen from him. When he has regained his strength, I will show him the way.
I asked him for motivation almost every day, I think, for the first couple of weeks, and then realised that wasn't the format at all, and I had to give him what he wanted without perhaps a full explanation of what he wanted, because he was searching for it too, and that's a really interesting way to work. It's a one-off. There aren't not many films like Born of Fire.